Hey, so I'm back with my vlog for the second day of Anime NYC 2026, and it's a mixed bag because regardless of whether or not this show has been around for like many years, which at this point it has, and it's seen a bunch of iterations, it's actually changed hands since it was first started at least once. If you have been listening, not watching, but listening to the podcast for a long time, you'll remember that I interviewed Peter Sitara, who is, I believe, still the head of the film program over at the Japan Society, which, but before that, he started Anime NYC. So, and he has since sold it to, I think the people handling it now, which is Left Field Media, who've always been, from a press perspective, really great. They give you as much access as it feels like they can give you, which will be coming up actually on the day I'm recording this, because I record these the day after each subsequent day. Today is going to be an odd day because it is the day when I go do an interview. So look forward to that coming out at some point. But as far as the convention itself, I miss the screening rooms aspect because those aren't a thing this year. If you remember last year, I would confidently look at you and say, hey, go put your butt in a seat and just watch some stuff you've never heard of before. Because in an anime con context, that's easier, because what they would do is they would set up screening rooms and you would have these blocks of shows, and usually it would be a bunch of episode ones of stuff that's going to come up in the subsequent seasons. But this time it feels like everybody wanted their own overhyped premiere moment. So you got, instead of getting things like Crunchyroll screeners, round 1, 2, 3, which is what has happened in previous years, you were getting things like the US premiere of Siren, or the US premiere of I've got materials here. The US, or this was I'm gonna pull that up to the camera, but this was what High Dive bought to the party. They bought other stuff, and it seems like all the publishers are probably saying like, hey, we want, if we're gonna bring something, we want kind of special treatment of, we can put on our screening ourselves. And that's totally understandable, I get it. But what ends up happening is you lose what you got out of screenings like Tomo-chan, like the Crunchyroll premieres block that everybody went to see the first episode of Tomo-chan and the Boy in. You also lose things like the infamous screening 2 years ago, I believe, where we all sat in a room and experienced the first episode of Yakuza Fiancé, and specifically the opening sequence of Yakuza Fiancé, which is rare for those screenings, because usually they don't show you an opening sequence. But we were all very glad that it did, and by seeing those two shows, it creates kind of word of mouth hype, because people come out of those screenings like, who cares about MF Ghost? What was that thing? This also happened with Sentenced to be a Hero last year. Everybody who sat in that Sentenced to be a Hero in the screen was Sentenced to be a Hero played. It played alongside other stuff, which is like, just screw everything else. This thing is awesome, and everyone should go watch it. Now, whether that translates from the screening room at a convention to when it premieres a couple months later, sometimes down the line, is a different thing. But those setting up a scenario in which you're not isolating your show for only the most diehard fans of the people who have heard of it, is really helps the show's word of mouth in a way that it doesn't happen when what I just described, in terms of like the single show screenings, happens, because you get people in a room who are maybe there to watch something totally different. And in a universe when everything is so controlled by algorithms and by your algorithmic feeds, to experience something that's like wholly different and new and weird that you wouldn't have experienced otherwise is incredible. Case in point, I kind of go sight unseen to I would go sight unseen to Zoe's screening room, because I'm just like, well, this is part of what I'm here for as covering the convention. It's just sitting in the seat and watching what they've got. I saw the first episode of Delicious in Dungeon that way. I saw the first episode of all three of the shows I mentioned: Tomo-chan is a Girl, Yakuza Fiance, Sentenced to be Hero. Those shows benefited from that format in a way that I think the day I'm recording this, which is technically day 3 of Anime NYC, is about to show do the East Coast premiere for Kagurabachi. That's a hugely anticipated adaptation of an incredibly kind of a pretty popular manga that they also did this at AX, and that thing's gonna be full. It's gonna be full. The premiere of Siren was full. It's not. The thing is not that you can't fill a room. Anybody with enough promotion time and talking about the right things can fill a room. I can tell you this. When I was doing panels at Liberty City Anime, a convention that used to precede this one, but now just doesn't exist thanks to COVID, I used to do a panel. I used to do several panels there. At the end, I was doing 3 panels there every year. But the 3 panels the panel that was like my advertising panel was a panel called it was I forget what I called it, but it was essentially about bad anime parents, and the whole goal of the panel was just to get people in the door so I could deliver this panel that was a fun time, but also tell them about the panel that was my real passion of a panel, which was called Full Metal and Beyond, an exploration of disability anime. Last year, somebody came up to me and profusely thanked me for putting on that panel for many years, because they're like, oh my god, I recognized you from that panel back when Liberty City was a real thing, and that was super touching. But my point there is that you can put butts in seats pretty easily, and the aspect of this show of just wanting a place to show what you think is a great show is great. But both screenings I sat in yesterday, both the Siren screening and the screening for, I'm gonna give it my best shot here, Tetsuyo, could have benefited from being alongside other stuff, because if somebody asks you, hey, what did you do at the convention today? And you say, oh, I went to the screening for Test Rio, and they ask you, that's kind of like that's a period on a sentence. But if they say, what did you do today at the con? And you say, oh, I went to I went to the Crunchyroll, I went to like the High Dive Slate screening, and they say, oh, and then conversation continues there. They say, what did you see? Oh, I saw it Test Rio. It's about this. It's more, one way satisfies, the licensors and the publishers, but the other way satisfies kind of fan engagement in a much more natural way that is not as easy as it used to be, that a lot of that heavy lifting has been kind of like shoveled onto YouTubers and podcasters like me, or like Mother Basement, who sit and watch just everything we can get our hands on. And even I, as a much lazier, less financially hooked to it podcaster, depend on people like Mother Basement. Every year I watch all the Mother Basement videos to be like, well, what do I want to watch? What looks interesting? What looks cool? On top of also keeping an eye on what's coming out and going to conventions like this and sitting in screenings. But I just think Siren specifically, I felt like this is a good, interesting show. This would have been a wild thing to see in the middle of a Crunchyroll presents slate of shows. It would have stood out more if it was something, this, something, if that makes any sense. That was my takeaway from the screening aspect, since once again, if you've seen my vlog on the third day, the 20th, the first day of the con, there's not a whole lot there. But other than the Netflix panel, which I don't think people are getting out of the way of, and I did not hear great things about in terms of how organized it was, and I've also heard stuff about the reservation system for the panels falling apart a little. I don't want to lend actual credence to that, but that's what I've heard standing in line for the Tokyo Pop panel. And that actually brings me nicely to the panels I went to see. So I started my day off, and to be clear, there are tons of people. You watching this right now may have spent your life as a fan, going to conventions. You're only getting half of the convention if you don't go to panels, because the panels are really interesting. They are about stuff you've oftentimes never thought of and never had a real way into thinking about. So I went to my first panel this time was a panel called Delicious in Data, which is run by Fan Service US, and he had a researcher from Carnegie Mellon, a grad student researcher from Carnegie Mellon with him. The guy's name is John. He is the CEO of Fan Service US, and they are what's the best way? They are a fandom research and data analytics company that helps anime companies understand their fandoms based on the numbers. And it was just a really interesting, and actually Miles from Quest for the Best and does a similar panel, and I popped into that for 5 seconds on my way to what I was hoping was going to be the AMV contest, but by the time I got to the AMV contest, it was full and they didn't have an overflow room, which I found weird because last time they put that thing in the Sakura stage and it did feel, and like they filled up the Sakura stage. I would have thought they wanted to put that in the Sakura stage again, but they didn't, which was like weird. We'll see if that weirdness continues today as I'm recording this, but essentially it's a look at anime. Both panels are a look at anime by the numbers and by the statistics and what that means. So that was really interesting. And then the next panel I went to was Tokyo Pop, and was the catching up with Tokyo Pop. This was a big industry panel day, so to speak. And that was just like, hey, for Tokyo Pop, we're still alive, here's what we got coming out. I dipped from that as soon as I kind of like knew that's what it was, and I went to the version of that had become a long-standing tradition for my Anime NYC experience, because I think I've been to every single Aizuki or Omoi now panel that's been put on, and I like going to that because I know Evan. Like, I've known Evan for a little bit over the internet and in person a little bit, usually through this very convention. And he's always been a manga head. The first time I heard about what's it called? Witch Hat Atelier was through Evan's podcast. And I've also had like back and forth with him on Twitter about various things. Most notably, I before the U.S. Death Note thing with Willem Dafoe in it premiered, I hilariously did a bad Photoshop of Willem Dafoe as Ryuk, where I just like tone shifted him white and colored his lips blue and called it a day. But that's always really interesting because that's a much closer to the metal, on purpose, I think, on Evan's part, display of what it looks like to be a manga publisher. And you get a much better feel of like, oh, this is what they're doing. And sorry, my alarm went off because I put an alarm in here because I wanted to be up in time to review my questions for the interview I have today. But anyway, so I was so I did that. That was really fun and great. And then the whole thing with the AMV contest happened, so I just kind of went home and decided to eat dinner like an adult, which I didn't successfully do the previous day. So that was I think a better choice on my part. But because there was nothing. This is the other thing I'm noticing. The After Dark stuff feels odd. Like, the After Dark stuff feels, at least to me, a little less explicitly not family friendly, like what happened the panel I went to last year, and a little more like, this could get weird, so we're gonna put it here. I'm noticing a lot of like fan run panels are there, and I understand it. Like, you just kind of want, like, if you're gonna like put a bunch of teenagers on stage or a bunch of 20-something on stage and let them like deliver, you want some grace of like people are expecting a little bit more of an edge. But in my mind, if you're gonna put a panel, like if you're gonna do an After Dark, if you're gonna have an After Dark panel session, that's where you put the real weird shit. That's where you put the real, like, greatest deaths in hentai or something. And just, so like, I like, by the end of the day, and I am no spring chicken, granted, I felt it by the end of the day. I'm also staying in a con-approved hotel, which meant that I closed my door, I went to bed. It got wild out there. You could hear it. But yeah, so that's where I'm gonna leave it. And I will catch you again for day 3. So yeah.